Welcome, everyone, to the Art of Tumbao Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping social dancers understand the hidden layers of social dance and everything that it encompasses. Today, we have a special guest on our podcast. Lizzy was actually on one of our recent trips to Cuba. So, Lizzy, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm just excited to talk to you guys and share my experience on this wonderful trip that Musa led. It really changed my perspective on a lot of things, so I want to just get right into it.
Yes, so as you know, we take people to Cuba on various trips throughout the year. Twice a year, we have our immersion trips to Cuba. This is for people who really want to experience the roots of salsa, some of the foundational rhythms that make up the music that we know as salsa today. A lot of those roots come from Cuba. That's why we travel there in these immersive experiences. And so, what inspired you to travel to Cuba?
Yeah, so I went a few times before, but really what struck me is during this trip, it was a completely different experience. And I know I told you that before, but I want to reiterate that because I saw and experienced the immersion of the culture. I was able to see really see what life was like there, not just, staying on the resort side. Like when you're traveling to another country, especially as an American, when you just stay on the resort side and you know nothing about the culture. No, this was complete, let's go to different places around Havana to experience Havana. And I saw more of Havana than I did in my previous trips. Even though I have been a few times, I didn't get to see the city. I didn't get to experience the different parts. Another one I think is the social dancing for sure. So we were able to see, the local social dance, and we watched too. We didn't just jump in and go dancing, because I learned that watching is also you also learn so much more by just watching and experiencing the people that way. So watching them dance son, for an example, I remember at Casa de la
Casa de la Música.
Yes, I remember that, and I'm just like, wow, this is just so different. It's so natural. And we also got to hit up some other spots that more tourists were around. There were more tourists there. So I got to experience the full range of social dancing, from the professional standpoint to the locals just dancing, at one of their events with no tourists, and also experiencing live rumba. That was insane. I didn't know that I could experience that. I mean, I knew that existed, but actually going to that street where they have live rumba, and they have, a lot of cultural dances that they just, I think it's every Sunday that they dance there, and it was just so special. There's so many parts of this trip that I'm impressed with. And one other thing I want to say is my last trips that I had been on, there was more of a vibe of the Cubans are almost paid to dance with the tourists. So it creates a certain dynamic and vibe where it's not like you're experiencing the real dance, the real Cuban way.
Yes, that's one of the things that the roots of salsa Cuban dancerry really values is immersive educational experiences. And we do this through the lens of Afro-Cuban dance and the expression that has become popular all around the world, which is known as salsa, really tracing the roots back. And you talked about some key places that we go in our itinerary. We make sure that we don't just stay in the nice resort area. We interact, we participate in the community, because we want to feel and embody what we're learning, whether if we're learning timba, son, cha-cha-cha, mambo. We really connect with people, and there might be some people that might want to go on this trip. So I want you to scale it back and talk about, before you went to Cuba, what were some of the preparations that you had to do before actually getting into the island?
Yes, so I will say, with going a few times to Cuba, I had to, you have to do a lot of preparation because the country doesn't have a lot of resources. So, and Cubans will tell you this, that there's a really big loss of hygiene products sometimes. There's not always access, or maybe they cost way above what someone makes, you know? And it's just not realistic for the regular Cuban person who is trying to make a living. So hygiene products, it's really good to pack a lot of extra hygiene products and pack extra in case you want to give some out to people who don't have access. Because when we're going here to Cuba and we're experiencing the culture, we're learning from them, I really think in my heart, like, giving back is just absolutely key. So the hygiene products, making sure you have, first aid supplies, because that goes hand in hand. They might not always have regular conventional stores to buy, or like drugstores to buy what you might need. So bringing extra medications if you need like ibuprofen. Again, bringing extra for people. So anything you could think of, Band-Aids, wraps, just in case, anything. Extra snacks. I brought just like little bit of nuts, little bit of bars, just to like fuel me in my days, because sometimes we dance all day. So you really want to make sure that you're fueled, and they don't really have too many like snack products like we do here. So it could be nice to bring that. Extra clothes, definitely bring some clothes for people there.
So a lot of people, for example, our recent trip that we just took a couple months ago, it was kind of difficult not getting to Cuba, but actually convincing people to come, because there was a lot of things in the news. There was a lot of, but us on the ground, it was a kind of a different story. It seemed like the news sort of said a story that wasn't quite accurate. So what do you have to say for people that might be on the fence about going to Cuba or might not think it's safe? Like, how was your experience since you were actually there recently? What would you have to say to people who have those concerns?
Well, first I just want to say yes, it's been really hard for Cuban people, and the government has been hard on them. But as far as traveling to Cuba, it's not difficult. There's nothing difficult about it, and it's easy. I know they were saying a lot of things about gas, but honestly, we didn't really have any problems with that. People are starting to get electric vehicles, and there's still some gas there. So we were able to get around. We didn't see a huge impact, especially since I had been the year before and the year before that. I didn't notice too much of a difference. We even talked to some local people, and we talked to people who travel there a lot, and they're like, please, we want people to come to Cuba still, because, the foreigners really support the Cuban people with their tourism. And that's really important for the economics, for people surviving, for people getting money, for a lot of different reasons. But so it's still really important to keep traveling to Cuba and to keep supporting the Cuban people and not be too afraid of what the news says, because that's not the story that we saw, or that I saw in Cuba.
Exactly. So let's sort of get into that day when you first arrived on the island. This is the Roots of Salsa Cuban Dance Retreat. You first arrive on the island. Just let's talk about this sort of, because we have our first day is sort of like an orientation day. Can you just talk about that experience of first getting to Cuba, what it was like, getting to the airport, going through customs, and then actually stepping out into the island?
Yes. So going on the plane, we stop in Miami, and then from Miami we have an hour flight to Cuba. Very easy flight. Everything's very smooth. I'm giving my documents to people, showing them. Then when we land, we go through a bit of a customs, but honestly, it's like really fast compared to other places I've been to. So I'll go to the front desk in the customs, hand my paperwork, they'll check it, it's all good. We get through and they check, they put our stuff through that scanner. There's a 30-minute Wi-Fi inside of the airport, so you can contact people if you need to. So there's a few ways you can do things. So you can either get a SIM card that works for Cuba, which you can also buy at the airport or outside of the airport because it's a little cheaper. Or you can still have your phone and use the 30-minute free Wi-Fi to contact people. Contact your taxi, because the taxi prices at the airport are gonna be ridiculous compared to outside. But yeah, and then I just went to my luggage, the carousel, and I grabbed my luggage, and we were able to contact our driver, and he was actually waiting there for quite a long time because our flight got delayed, and he was so kind, so patient to wait there. He even had some waters for us, so of course we gave him a huge tip because just very kind. And I think that's the culture in Cuba a lot of the time, is people are just kind and want to help people out. There's nothing, their hearts are very open. And a lot of people will actually tell you that Cuba is like really safe compared to other places that you could travel to. It's like extremely safe because there's not that much violence or that much crime, especially because foreigners really support the Cuban people, and so they want to protect that.
Exactly. So after this first day, one of the key things that we value is community integration. When we get into our immersion trips, we don't really create a wall between our group and the community. We really participate in the community. We learn about the neighborhood that we're staying in. And one of the main neighborhoods that we stay in is called Vedado. It's a little outside of the main city of Havana. So I want you to share a little bit about your experiences on our community walks. So we have what we call community walks. When we first get to the island, this is the next day after arrival day. And this is a chance for our guests to just sort of get in touch with the markets, get in touch with walking around the neighborhood, talking to the locals, seeing how things work, just sort of navigation and orientation into their neighborhood and their casa, wherever they're staying. So what's your experience? How did you experience that first day of our community integration?
For the first day, we did go to
Hotel Nacional.
Yes, we went to Hotel Nacional and went over the itinerary and saw the sunset. It was beautiful. This is after we had some rest and some downtime. I think we also got food after we went to Hotel Nacional. But Hotel Nacional is a big historical hotel, and it's important to go there but not stay there. So if you're staying there, you're pretty much kind of supporting, you're just supporting the government more as the people who have their individual casas. So that's why we always stayed at the casas. And I think my last trip I did, before going on the Roots of Salsa, I stayed at Hotel Nacional one time because there was a festival. But like I said, that experience is so different. There's a wall, like Musa was saying. Like during this trip, we lift up that wall and get to open and experience the streets, the people, the music, the food, the real food. So definitely much more fulfilling. But yeah, then we had some amazing, authentic Cuban food. We went back to that place multiple times because it was delicious. And then on our second day, we went on a walk and we went to one of the markets, which it's really fun. I love it because there's a lot of people and it was pretty close by and we got to see the neighborhood of Verdado. So that was really special. We got to see all of the different fruits and the different foods they have, and I got a coconut inside of there and bringing back some fruits for our casas. and just, communicating to the people of like what we want, what kind of fruits we want, practicing Spanish if you don't know Spanish already. Like me, I still have to practice. So yeah, I really loved that. And then we were on many walks after that, and we were able to see some of the same type of people when on our walks and say hello. We kind of got like used to the neighborhood and used to some of the people, which was really beautiful. And then one of the days we saw Sankofa Museum. We were just walking, and then it was like right there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know Rumba All Stars. And so that was really cool to go inside of the museum, and it was kind of just something that we got to experience. And we were gonna go there, but we weren't sure exactly where it was yet, and we just saw it there. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience because remember when we got there, a lot of the Afro-Cuban spirituality is very prevalent in Cuban society, such as when you have the different orishas and people sort of give respects and give libations to the orishas and are guided by the orishas. One of the orishas is El Egua, and I remember that when we found that Sankofa, Havana, that cultural center, the woman there was so nice to us, and she told us that El Egua brought us there. And it seemed like that really was what happened, because we were in contact with Sankofa, but as we were walking away from the market, we just took a turn here, we took a turn there. We were just exploring the neighborhood, and we just happened to come upon Sankofa, Havana.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful people. Really, you should go check out that the podcast episode that Musa did with them. So that was such an experience, and just like connecting with these people. And we went back after, and we developed a special connection, with some of the people on that property, and it was such a highlight of my experience there as well.
So before we get more into the itinerary, let's talk, because a lot of people are also concerned about the housing situation in Cuba. Some people, I get questions when I'm doing my trips about where are we gonna stay, what's included, is there gonna be blackouts, is there warm water, is there what's the housing situation like? Because a lot of the times what's being said about the experience isn't what the experience is. So can you talk a little bit about the casa that you stayed in? All of the casas that we give to our participants on our trip, the housing is included in the price, and we specifically curate each casa that we give out to people. We make sure the casa has all the amenities so that they feel comfortable. What was your experience in the casa particular?
Yeah, so it's really sweet. So a Cuban woman had introduced us to the place and brought us up there, very warm and welcoming, and she just was always there if we needed anything. We had Wi-Fi, we did have warm water as well, and we had everything, that a casa could need. We had the cleaner coming to take care of it when we were out. And yeah, there is blackouts there. So I will say we experienced a few blackouts, but sometimes they'd be like 7 minutes long, or another time they'd be 20 minutes long. So that's one part, make sure you're bringing your flashlights, but it's not gonna be more than a few hours. I don't think we experienced one that was a few hours even, maybe less than an hour. So you can bring battery packs if you want to be extra prepared, if you want to make sure your phone's charged. But really, when it comes to that, that's just kind of a daily part of Cuban life, is like these 7-minute, 20-minute blackouts that happen sometimes. They might happen every other day or so. So that did happen, and then sometimes the water would get shut off. But that would also happen for like a certain part of the day, so it might be like an hour during the day. But like I said, that's also a normal part of Cuban life, so they're very used to that. So when you're traveling to a place like this, it's important to immerse yourself and also kind of allow yourself to get used to the ways that Cuban people live. Of course, we're gonna have a lot more amenities than the average Cuban person, you know, because we can afford it and we're very used to it, our amenities here in the U.S. So as far as worrying about blackouts or lack of water, there's really no reason to worry about that. So as you can tell, we're in a park. But anyway, there's really no reason to worry about that. Like I said, bring extra battery packs. For our water, we're always gonna drink bottled water. You're never gonna touch the water that comes from the faucet to your mouth. So when it comes to brushing your teeth, you use the bottled water. And that's just for extra safety. You know, that water isn't always the cleanest as we have here. So we're not used to that. And it's very important to have clean water. So we're gonna always have packs of bottles of water for you guys, and make sure you brush your teeth with it. No opening your mouth in the shower. Just try not to put that water inside of your mouth that's not from the bottle.
Yeah, and where we stay on the Roots of Salsa Cuban Dancing Tree is part of the immersive experience. We stay at Casa Particulares, that's what they're called. They're homes from the Cuban people that the Cuban people themselves are renting out to tourists and to people like that. You get to experience what it's like to live almost as if you are a Cubano. Not like you're gonna be a Cubano, but you get the sense of it in a sense that some of the casas you can request to live with a family, or if you want your own casa, we do have options for having your own casa. And a lot of the times the casas are really nice. Like that's something that I've experienced. Like there's some nice casas in Cuba. One of the things that we do is when we pick casas per people, we make sure we pick it in neighborhoods that have a good access to the grid, because the grid is what allows for the different power outages. We know which buildings have the best grids. We're always trying to make that experience good for our participants so that they can really feel at home, so they can feel like they're safe in the space that they're in, and so that they can recharge, because a lot of the immersive experiences that we have, you know, it's transformational experiences. We value having a good place to come back to charge, to rest, so that each day we have space and capacity to learn more.
That's exactly how I felt. Our casa was very beautiful, and I felt like I could luxuriate and relax. So it's definitely, yeah, I really enjoy it.
Okay, so now let's get into some of the more features that we stop in our itinerary. Give us 3 places that we went in our itinerary that had an impact on you, and sort of like just go one by one, list where we went and what was the transformation that you experienced at that place. Because each place that we curate in our itinerary, we design it so that our participants experience a transformation. And this is the essence of an immersive experience. When you put yourself into the culture like that, you're either gonna sink or swim, right? And when you swim, that's where you swim and you get your transformation. And that's what you leave the island with. It's something that gets expressed through your movement after that. It's sort of like you've integrated some type of essence or flavor from actually being in the community on the land.
One that's coming to my mind is the Yemaya Church. So that was absolutely beautiful. We got in contact with some people who could kind of give us a little tour and really explain the layout of, because we had to take a ferry over to this other part of the island, and it wasn't long, you know, you could see the other part, so just a little ferry boat ride to the other part. And we met up with these people who could give us the tour and give us all of the educational background of this island, how the Yemaya Church got built there. Actually seeing the Yemaya Church, like, almost brought tears to my eyes because it's beautiful. It's such a visceral experience, and you can really feel the presence of the culture and the religion. So that kind of came towards the end, which was really nice because I got to experience all of the, the dancing, the high vibe, high energy activities. And then towards the end, we saw the Yamaya Church, which really brought it full circle for me. And then seeing the place where people make offerings to Yamaya. So Yamaya is an orisha inside of the Yoruba religion, and also known as Santeria in Cuba. And so we saw this little place where there's steps down to the ocean on the island that we were at, on the Yamaya Church Island. What's the island called again?
Regla.
Regla. So, Regla, yes. So we went down those steps and saw all these offerings inside of the ocean. And we really got to see and learn about why people make offerings to Yamaya and the significance behind that.
Yeah, this is an amazing experience to go to this church. Sometimes people don't understand why we put this in our itinerary. It's like, oh, you're going to a church? Like, why are you going to a church for the roots of salsa? But this church is actually a part of the story because it really emphasizes what's called syncretization. And this is what people had to do to be able to practice their spirituality, right? They had to encode their spirituality underneath the spirituality of the Catholic religion. And it was sort of hidden in a way, but now this church shows sort of how it's sort of getting more integrated. One of the main things the guide was showing us, he was pointing out to us the people walking in and he was telling us to look at what they're wearing, and he was telling us these people are from the religion, right? Saying that they practice regla de ocha, or they practice santeria, as well as they were sitting next to people who were practicing the Catholic faith. And he was really pointing this out to us, showing us it was happening real time. People coming into the church, lighting a candle, saying their prayers. This introduction of spirituality is so important when it comes to the dance and the rhythms and the movements, especially the Afro-Orisha movements, and learning how that incorporates into salsa. To see some of that background.
Yeah, like I said, it just really brought things full circle after experiencing a lot of parts of the culture and experiencing the high energy dancing and classes. Then I was like, oh, so this is part of it. This is the roots. This is what they had to do in order to keep their culture and their religion alive. And this essentially is a part of the roots of salsa. So, yeah, very beautiful. I want to also talk about my second favorite. I can't believe I can only do 3, but my second favorite, we did a lot of classes, private lessons, and we had an amazing teacher, Yorena. Shout out to Yorena, because she really did her thing and taught us throughout the day, throughout multiple days. So I was able to take some of those classes, and the routines were just so fun, and the way she's just accepting everybody at all levels. We had an all levels kind of private lesson, and that within our group, and that was really special. And yeah, just learning from her was an honor, a true honor, and seeing her, the place that she teaches out of, her studio, and I think it's in the Central Havana. Yeah, so we were in Central Havana taking these classes, and then we also went to another studio and took some more classes.
Yeah, it's so fun. Our days are filled with just enriching educational, cultural experiences. And one of the things that we do is we travel to the different dance schools in this trip, and we just show up ready to learn. I remember one day we were going to Yoena's studio, which is a humble studio right in Central Havana. You have to call her name. When you get to the building, you gotta call her name, and then she sort of has this contraption where she pulls a thread on the top floor and it unlocks the door on the bottom, right? So then she says, "Hey," she lets us up. She has a nice studio up there, and everything is laid out, and we're able to really get top tier coaching from some of the best Cuban dancers. I mean, Joanna is trained classically, right? She has a lot of experience, and in the class with you, she was actually showing y'all something that not a lot of instructors teach, which is the essence of body mechanics.
So we did some rumba, we did a rumba class and some body movement on rumba, and we really learned each component of the body mechanics of how to get into rumba, which is a lot. But she was able to break down each one, and we drilled that for a little bit, and then we were able to put it together. And that's like really the first time I was able to really get it, you know? And after that class, I kept practicing. I was able to create a video and keep that video and practice and practice and practice. Because it's about just keep going and keep doing it, and then you'll get it. But I'm so glad that I had that foundation of learning from her, because she, you know, she knows what she's doing and she'll really break it down for you. So.
And this is another part of the values of the Roots of Salsa Cuban Dance Retreat, and this is how we actually support the Cuban people, right? We're supporting these Cuban artists who are doing their best to keep their businesses going despite all the circumstances, despite the pressure. Us being from America, it's a different experience from the Cuban people. They definitely are gonna have an experience living there on the island. We can leave as we wish, but to live as a Cuban person, it's a completely different story. So it's one of our values that we go, and it's almost like how we pay homage to salsa by giving back to the roots, giving back to the actual people who are maintaining the roots to this day on the island, right? We went to some other dance schools as well.
Yeah, so we did go to another dance school that is Casa de Son. So we went there, and that was another amazing experience. They have a lot of great Cuban dance teachers that are all around in different rooms. It's more of a bigger studio, and they have different people who might be coming in and learning in a different room, so you'll see different kinds of tourists coming in and learning from them. But in our private lesson, we got to really break down casino. And the way this teacher broke down casino was just like no other. I never experienced learning casino in that way before.
So the Casa de Son is a place that is very important that we go visit because it's right in the middle of Havana Vieja. And this is one of the places that we also do a community walk. We go into the neighborhood of Havana Vieja. Havana Vieja is more of like the tourist. It has more tourist attractions there. But inside of the little streets, the nooks and crannies, you really find pockets of culture. You really find people like the Casa de Son. This is a group of very talented instructors who on a daily basis are training people on the very techniques that make Cuban style of music and dance.
There's a few teachers that kind of float around there, different rooms that you can choose which room, you can choose which teacher you want to learn from. So there's some variety there of what you can have. Female teachers, male teachers. Of course, the social dancing is a blast. There's so many Cuban people to dance with and tourists who travel there occasionally, so you can experience different types of people, but mostly Cubans, because the spots that we went to, we really tried to focus on going to local spots instead of extremely touristy spots. Because like I was saying earlier, there's times where, sometimes Cubans will actually be paid to dance with tourists, and that's more at different types of festivals. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not really getting to experience an authentic dance where both people are like, yes, I want to dance together. And like also integrating yourself, watching them and learning how they move, how they ask for dances, how how to attract a dance to you. Being in that space and actually being able to experience how that process works, because it's a little different than here in the US. So yeah, learning about that process versus just like dancing at a festival where the Cubans are almost paid to dance with you. And not like that process is super different than the US, but like when you go to another country, when you go to another place, watching the people and learning how they move and how they do things. When you're going out social dancing, it's more of like, it's a very social experience. So you'll talk to people, you'll dance with people. You might dance multiple songs with one person if you want to, or just one, whatever you want. So yeah, that was incredible, and obviously dancing with them is amazing. They're very understanding, and a lot of them like to dance with tourists. They're fine with that. Even though we're learning from them. But like I said, they're very open-hearted and humble people, and it's not always about doing the best flashy moves, but about the connection. So that's what I got to also experience, is like there's a real part about connection when you're dancing, not just about how you look.
Yeah, this connection aspect is one of the main reasons why in our itinerary for every day we have an option for social dancing. It's optional. Our social dancing happens at night. We do have some matinees that are available for the people on our trip who want to get to bed early. We have some good matinees where you can go social dancing too. But every day we schedule in a place where we're gonna go social dancing. So when you come on this trip, every night you're gonna have an opportunity, which is a place that actually has a live band sometimes, and they have also matinee nights where the community organizes their own socials. So it's amazing to see a Cuban run social and how it works. We got to see one where they did Rueda de Casino. A lot of the elders actually came out to the club, and they have a matinee, an earlier Rueda de Casino social, where some of the elders go. We go to some of the more late night rooftop spots that are really fun. A lot of the big dance instructors come and do animations where the whole crowd dances with some movements. We go to street socials outside in the public. There's many different places that we go for social dancing and to experience what it's like, what that connection that Lizzy was talking about.
Yes, and also, of course, the live bands. You'll hear live music everywhere. And it's like incredible. Like everybody is just on a whole nother level, obviously, because that's their culture. But it's like another thing to actually experience it. So, walking around during the evening or even during the day, there'll be bands playing sometimes, in the central city. You'll see that and hear it. You'll hear the music on the streets. You're like, where is this coming from? So it's wonderful. And then during the evening, we'll do some social dancing at live bands sometimes, and that is a blast. Hearing those instruments and really getting to dance all night or as late as you want to that incredible music. It's like such an enlivening experience that you probably won't get here.
Exactly. Okay, is there any other specific stories off the top of your head that you would want a guest that would be coming on the Roots of Salsa Cuban Dance Retreat, that you would want them to know? Like what would be the main takeaway or main, like the pinnacle of this experience for you? Like what was it?
The education, the roots, and just the humbleness of learning what that is like. So educating yourself on the different areas of Havana. I got to, I don't want to give away too much either. We have to give them a little a little taste, because it's really an experience. I don't want to like just give it to you right here, or like spoil it. Although I don't really think that can happen, because experiencing it is a whole nother thing. So, yeah, I got to see that there's actually a Chinatown in Cuba. Like, what?
We went to Chinatown. It's an interesting story how Chinatown got to Cuba. We really value learning about the history of Cuba, because that helps us put our movement into context. And just like when it comes to the indentured servitude, people bringing certain types of people into the island to work, one of the people that they brought into Cuba was actually Chinese people. So there's a community of Chinese people inside of Cuba to this day, and they have their own neighborhood called Barrio Chino. And this is the neighborhood that we explore as well for our guests that come on the trip.
Yeah, so we got to see that, and then just so many different parts. I got to see a side of Cuba which was like some of these buildings were actually maintained, and I didn't get to see this last time. There's this like street where there's some buildings that are maintained, because when you go to Cuba, a lot of buildings are kind of falling apart. They're old historical buildings, but the government's not putting effort into maintaining these buildings for the people, which is really sad, obviously. But there's this one street where some of these buildings are like really well maintained, and there's definitely a lot of tourists on that street, and I didn't know that existed either. It's like stepping into Europe. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, you'll step onto the street, see completely different people, a different vibe, and it's like you just went into Spain. Crazy. And then you go to the next street and you'll be like back in Cuba. So there's Chinatown, there's that street, which, we'll show you when you come. And then all the different social dancing spots, taking the ferry, then experiencing the casa, experiencing the markets. Like, it's really cool. Seeing the children on the streets just playing, being in their element. Also the children there are like amazing dancers, which when you go to some of these events, because we're going to the local events, so we'll see kids there who are maybe dancing like some of the Cuban adults are, and it's just like, wow, this is like so cool. It's so cool to see the elders, the kids, and the people in between. Yeah, and then of course the food, amazing. I loved eating there, because we got to eat real Cuban food, which is so important to taste the culture. So yeah, all of those aspects, and then learning about people. Like, I got to actually do an interview, which will be coming soon, with a dancer that I got really inspired by. I saw her performing, and I was like, I really want to do an interview with her, and she accepted. So that will be coming soon as well. Maybe we'll post it on here on the podcast. But that was a really special moment, because I got to converse with a Cuban person and ask her a lot of questions that she was open to answering about her daily life here. What's it like growing up, being a dancer here, performing all the time for tourists, and what she wants to tell you guys coming to Cuba. So that felt really, really special to me as well. So much. I want to go there right now. Like, I'm just like remembering all of the amazing experiences that I had, and I miss it. So I'm like really excited to go in fall with some of you all, and I know that the people who come on this trip will be meant to come on this trip. So looking forward to seeing you guys in person.
Let's talk, like, we don't want to paint the picture that traveling to Cuba is such a romantic thing. There are issues in Cuba, you know, when it comes to the Cuban people living there. We encountered issues. So can you talk a little bit about sort of like the shadow side or some things that you encountered in Cuba that we had to work through?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't as bad as the news and people paint it out to be. But of course, like, you can learn more about this, but the Cuban people really do struggle. So, like I was saying before, simple things like hygiene, having clothes, sometimes even getting food, like enough variety of food. A lot of people will just eat the same thing every day because there's just not enough resources. So seeing all of that and coming from a privileged space, but then going to that space and seeing that, you get to see what another world is like and you get to appreciate what you have and then also pay homage. And if you want to bring things for Cuban people, they love that. I was able to bring some feminine hygiene products for women. I was able to bring some children's ibuprofen. I was also able to bring some other hygiene products for kids, soaps, and then some clothing. Because when we went there was a little bit of a cold front, which I've never experienced, but it was a little chilly, like, you know, maybe spring in Colorado. Like, it was a little chilly. So people were really in need of some jackets. So I was able to give some jackets to a really sweet little girl. Actually, maybe we should put that video in here.
We're gonna put that video.
So we're gonna put that and we'll show you guys that moment where I brought that jacket and also a little stuffed animal that I bought there. And just, you know, when you come from a place of privilege, sharing or doing what you can, it's not coming from a savior mindset, which is another shadow, like, oh, I have to save these people. No, they're very used to this life. They've adapted and this is how they get to live. But when we're going to learn from a culture, paying back and just giving what you can is also important. So it's not that you're saving, but you're just doing it out of a humble, respectful place. And then obviously there's some blackouts, like I was saying, that sometimes for a few minutes or to 20 minutes or less than an hour is what I experienced when I was there. So you can get some battery packs. And then sometimes, not having water, like maybe for an hour throughout the day. So like you can't like really wash the dishes. I mean, it won't be like all day. You won't be out of water all day, but it will definitely be maybe more than an hour during the day. So it might be a chunk of the day where there's like no water. And that's not every day, but that definitely did happen. Which can make it hard if you want to shower right then. But it will be turned on later, so you can go and shower in the evening or whenever it gets turned on. Let's see, what else? What's another shadow? There's definitely the shadow of, let's just say that some people there are very, very friendly. And so they're very friendly to tourists. And there's a reason for that, because there has been connections and things in the past where a tourist will get with a Cuban and they will be together and maybe try to form a relationship, but that doesn't necessarily work out. And we're not going to Cuba for that reason. This is an educational trip, so we want to refrain from trying to get into any of those scenarios, just because it's a power indifference. As a person who's coming from a privileged place, you're traveling to Cuba, obviously that person might be with you because you are in a more privileged place. So that's another shadow that sometimes happens at these festivals with a lot of tourists is, that's not why we're going to Cuba for this trip. So I wanted to throw that out there as well, because that's definitely something serious that happens. So please try to refrain from that, because you have to look at the bigger picture. Like, yes, you could form a really amazing connection with somebody, but Yeah, at the end of the day, let's pay our respects, pay homage, be humble, learn from this community.
Okay, so just wrapping this up, we went over a lot of our itinerary for the Roots of Salsa Cuban Dance Retreat. We have a trip coming up in the fall, so look in the info below to sign up for that trip. Book your spots today because we do have limited spots. Our groups are not big groups, we're small, intimate groups to really make the experience very detailed, very to make it an immersion. Right? We take a small group of people who have the intention to get in touch with the culture, you know, with the intention to learn, with the intention to transform during this experience. So after the trip, I just want to see your perspective of what did you leave from this whole experience? Our 10 days in Cuba, what did it give you after when you came home, when you got on the flight, came back home? What did you realize that trip gave to you?
A different kind of transformational educational experience. And something else is like leaving with my heart full. Because when you get to experience the people in the real culture, it's beautiful. Like, it's absolutely just gorgeous to watch and to witness and be a part of, you know, learn from. So that was such a key thing for me, getting to experience so much in such a short amount of time, but also getting enough rest. You know, I really felt like I did so much on this trip and I grew and learned so much, but I also got that time to integrate, which was also important, which some of my other trips I didn't. It was kind of more fast paced. But I realized like you're able to actually fit in a lot and have rest time. So that was another, you know, that's a really special thing is the education, getting to experience, getting to speak to Cuban people, getting to learn by asking questions and witnessing.
Okay, any last words? Because there's people out there who have seen my content about our Roots of Salsa Cuban Dance Retreat, and they're interested in going. They want to know the next steps. What would you encourage these people to look into, and would you encourage these people to get on this trip?
I would definitely encourage you, if you are a person who loves to learn, loves to have fun, loves to experience, and loves to grow as a person. So if you have all of those traits, or even if you're open to those traits or open to experiencing the roots, the real roots of salsa and everything that we said on this trip, we want you. And our door is open to you and we're just waiting for you to say yes. And I know that those special people who are going to come on this trip are meant to come with us and meant to experience the transformation. So again, I'm just so looking forward to it.
Perfect. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Art of Tumbao podcast. This episode is really about our Roots of Salsa Cuban Dance Retreat that we host multiple times a year. Our next one is coming up in the fall. So look in the information below. I want to give a big thanks to Lizzy, who was on our recent trip. We just got back 2 months ago from our Roots of Salsa trip. It was amazing. Thank you, Lizzy, for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me explain my experience and share with you guys. We're going to share so much more information inside of that information meeting. So if you have questions, you can bring them all there.
All right. All the information will be below to sign up, and we hope to see you there. And see you in the next episode of the Art of Tumbao.